the harsh, and occasionally absurd, realities of early settler life. Arrival. Expectations versus muddy reality. Spoiler: mud wins. So you've just spent weeks, maybe months, crammed onto a boat that smelled suspiciously like despair and questionable life choices. Your personal space? Non-existent, unless you count the few inches between your head and the sweaty armpit of your equally miserable neighbor. The rocking of the ship wasn't a gentle lullaby, it was a constant, creaky reminder that a vast, indifferent ocean was the only thing between you and, well, whatever this was going to be. The air itself was a charming cocktail of stale provisions, something you'd rather not identify, and enough anxiety to power a small city. But hey, you had dreams. Big dreams. Dreams of a land flowing with milk and honey, or at least really easy to farm dirt. Pamphlets back home might have shown sunshine, docile fluffy creatures, and trees practically begging to be turned into houses. You pictured rolling hills, maybe a gentle breeze, definitely not mud up to your ankles. Then, someone yells, "Land ho!" Suddenly, everyone forgets they haven't washed in weeks, and dog piles onto the deck, craning their necks for a glimpse of paradise. This was it, the promised land. The culmination of an agonizing journey. Except, your first step ashore isn't onto firm ground. It's into a squelching, sucking, utterly committed to being difficult mud pit. This wasn't the solid foundation you'd envisioned for your glorious new life. It was more like stepping into a particularly unenthusiastic swamp. The picturesque hills? Replaced by a thick, grumpy-looking forest that seemed to actively glare at you. This wasn't a place that whispered of opportunity, it screamed hard labor and probably mosquitoes. Every rustle in the trees, every weird bird noise, just hammered home the point. Those pamphlets? Hilarious. The idyllic ease was apparently on a different continent. Your carefully built dream of the new world didn't just shatter, it landed face first in the mud, with a sad, wet thwack. And the welcoming committee? Mostly persistent, bitey insects. Tiny, but relentless harbingers of the countless headaches to come. Stepping ashore wasn't a triumphant arrival. It was a humbling, muddy realization that you were very small, and the wilderness was very, very large and unimpressed. Shelter, 4 walls and a leaky roof. Maybe. Alright, you've survived the mud, now for shelter. Forget Pinterest-perfect log cabins rising gracefully from the forest floor. The first homes were less dream home and more, please don't let a bear eat me tonight chic. Building wasn't a leisurely HGTV project. It was a frantic, sweat-soaked race against the elements, armed primarily with an axe. An axe that was probably dull, heavy, and seemed to actively resent your attempts to chop anything. The trees, ancient and massive, just stood there, silently judging your feeble efforts. Chopping one down felt like winning the lottery, a hard-won victory against incredibly stubborn plant life. Walls went up using whatever you could manage, sometimes actual logs, sometimes just sad, split planks. Precision was a word nobody had time for. You ended up with walls that had, let's call them, ventilation features. Gaps. Lots of gaps. Perfect for drafts, bugs, and the unsettling feeling that everything in the woods was watching you. Filling these gaps involved stuffing in whatever was handy. Damp mud, terrible insulation, moss, crumbles instantly, and a healthy dose of pure, unadulterated hope. Turns out, hope isn't great at blocking wind. The wind whistled through the cracks like a mournful symphony, making the inside of your home feel suspiciously like the outside. Staying warm was a full-time job, involving constantly feeding a fire that only seemed to heat the 2 square feet directly in front of it. And the local wildlife. They didn't see your cabin as a fortress, they saw it as a suggestion. A squirrel wasn't just a visitor. It was your new, noisy, freeloading roommate who paid no rent, and seemed determined to tap dance in the rafters at 3 a.m. Roofs were even more optimistic, layers of bark that warped and cracked, or bundles of thatch that laughed in the face of waterproofing. Rain didn't just stay outside, it became an indoor feature, dripping persistently in multiple locations. Each drip was a tiny, annoying reminder that your floor was slowly turning back into the mud you'd just escaped. Neowary. These early homes were dark, cramped, and perpetually damp. Not exactly home sweet home, more like, well, it's slightly better than sleeping outside probably. They were monuments to sheer stubbornness, and the desperate need to not be eaten by something with more teeth than you. The quest for calories, a culinary adventure. Food. Ah, food. In the New World, acquiring calories wasn't a trip to the grocery store. It was an all-consuming, anxiety-inducing saga. Those seeds you brought from home, little bags of hope? Yeah, the North American soil looked at them and said, nah, I'm good. When something did manage to sprout, the local bugs and critters, apparently unaware of your property claims, treated it like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Learning to grow native crops like corn was a lifesaver, but also a massive headache. It was like trying to master a completely new, incredibly frustrating video game with no tutorial. Most attempts resulted in tiny harvests, and a whole lot of hangry disappointment. Hunting sounded exciting in theory, but in reality, it involved lugging around a clunky musket that took forever to reload, and might misfire at the exact wrong moment. Actually hitting a fast-moving animal with this thing required immense skill, saint-like patience, and probably a good luck charm. More often than not, you just ended up exhausted, frustrated, and still hungry. Dinner frequently consisted of whatever mystery root vegetable you managed to dig up and tentatively identify as probably not poisonous, usually boiled into sad submission. Fishing offered a glimmer of hope, but even that depended on the weather, the season, and whether the fish felt like cooperating with your admittedly crude fishing gear. Foraging was basically playing, is this edible or will it kill me, with your dinner. The line between nourishing berry and excruciating death was a little too blurry for comfort. Hunger wasn't just an occasional grumble, it was a constant companion, shaping every single day. A lack of proper food meant everyone was basically running on empty, making them easy targets for every passing illness. Mealtimes weren't happy family gatherings. They were just necessary. Stew again was likely the catchphrase of the era. Even drinking water was a gamble, as streams were often home to microscopic terrors that led to, shall we say, digestive distress that could be deadly. The daily search for enough calories wasn't an adventure, it was a brutal, unglamorous fight for survival. Early settlers endured much, yet they stuck it out. Their sheer stubbornness, their grim determination, and yes, probably a healthy dose of dark gallows humor about how truly awful things were, laid the groundwork for everything that came after. They were too busy just surviving to really appreciate the view or the historical significance of what they were doing. But their legacy of resilience and sticking together, even when they probably got on each other's last nerve, is pretty incredible.